For millennia, humanity has gazed into the night sky and asked the same fundamental question: are we alone? What if the answer has been circling above us all along, a silent and persistent enigma hiding in plain sight? This is not a story of distant galaxies, but of a shadow in our own orbit. A story that begins not with modern satellites, but in a dimly lit 19th century laboratory with the obsessive genius of Nikola Tesla. His mysterious reception of signals from the stars was dismissed as fantasy, but were they natural phenomena, or the first whispers of a message from an unknown sender? The question was quietly buried, only to re-emerge in the stark void of space. Astronauts, the pioneers of our ascent, have spoken of an unsettling sense of surveillance, a feeling that not all objects in orbit are human-made. This suspicion is echoed in the hidden truths buried within forgotten government archives, where historians have found declassified documents hinting at something unknown shadowing our earliest steps into the cosmos. The evidence often begins as a ghost in the margins, a crumpled, black-and-white photograph revealing something beyond human technology, a smudge on a print that defies explanation. This brings us to the central mystery, a dark, orbiting silhouette rumored to have been here long before us. Is this the Black Knight, or just space debris? The legend became entangled in the paranoia of the Cold War, a period when every shadow in the sky was a potential threat. Journalists who chased the truth of the silent watcher were often silenced, their stories buried under the weight of national security. While the world watched the space race, one must wonder if the cosmonauts and astronauts knew about the silent companion already waiting for them above. The signals, it turns out, were captured. On old, worn magnetic tapes stored in dusty laboratories, the satellite's transmissions were recorded, but they were never officially explained. With every rocket that tore through the night sky, the question lingered: was this vessel alone in orbit, or did it join something already waiting? A desperate, clandestine effort to understand the anomaly began. In dim offices, brilliant cryptographers sketched strange mathematical patterns, attempting to decode the mysterious satellite signals. Scientists studying radar printouts discovered that the object followed a path that no ordinary orbit should, a trajectory that seemed almost intentional. Some have even wondered if a fragment of this dark metal object, with its jagged edges and strange markings, has already fallen to Earth, a relic from the stars mistaken for human debris. The search for answers led to forgotten listening posts in desolate deserts, where lone radar dishes once tuned to the unknown now stand as silent monuments to a forgotten mystery. What did the governments of the world really know? In dusty storage rooms, archivists have carefully opened sealed boxes marked top secret, revealing suppressed truths about what was being tracked in the sky. For decades, countless witnesses in the remote wilderness, far from the light of cities, have reported a strange, slow-moving light, its unnatural orbit visible against the shimmering dance of the auroras. In the icy expanse of the Arctic, explorers reported bizarre anomalies: compass needles trembling uncontrollably, instruments going haywire, events often tied to the Black Knight's presence overhead. The first whispers came from lone satellite dish operators on frigid mountain observatories, their headphones pressed to their ears as they intercepted signals no one could identify. They were not alone. Civilian ham radio enthusiasts, huddled in cramped shacks, also claimed to have intercepted these impossible signals, their dials buzzing with a voice from the void. The mystery became an obsession for a generation of thinkers. Mathematicians scribbled frantic equations across chalkboards, trying to decode the satellite's impossible orbit. Polar research teams, trekking through the icy wilderness, detected strange electromagnetic pulses that seemed to coincide with the satellite's passage, anomalies that connected the poles to the shadow in the sky. Astronauts, shrouded by the silence of deep orbit, privately saw things that were never listed in their mission reports. It is believed that recordings of these signals still exist, the tapes hidden away in laboratory vaults, carrying suppressed knowledge on their magnetic surfaces. For military radar technicians in dim, green-lit bunkers, the anomalous object was a constant source of paranoia, a ghost in the machine of Cold War surveillance. And in sterile white labs, under the cold glare of microscopes, scientists have examined dark, metallic shards, wondering if these fragments, with their strange surface patterns and faint, etched symbols, could be a piece of something far older than mankind's technology. The paper trail is a labyrinth of secrets. Declassified files are filled with unexplained gaps, with reports of satellite imagery that has been mysteriously redacted. Astronomers in observatories around the world have tracked a mysterious orbit they could not identify, a celestial ghost in their telescopes. In mission control rooms, radio operators claimed they heard structured signals from the void, whispers that were quickly dismissed as static. The accounts of polar explorers tell a similar story, their weather journals filled with shaky sketches of impossible orbits and unexplained lights in the sky. The endless effort to decode the Black Knight's transmissions became an obsession for many, a riddle that consumed careers and left scientists asleep at their desks, surrounded by mountains of unanswered equations. And when the cosmonauts and astronauts returned, emerging from their capsules into the snowy plains, one has to wonder what they truly saw up there before they were sworn to secrecy. Modern analysis suggests the signals may contain encoded star maps, a message written in the language of mathematics. Civilians have their own stories, recalling times when television broadcasts were interrupted by static, a grainy frame briefly showing the image of a strange, orbiting silhouette. The polar regions, it is claimed, are key to understanding the satellite's orbit, with remote Arctic stations serving as unwitting witnesses to its passage. Stranger still are the reports of temporal anomalies linked to the satellite, of explorers whose watches would freeze, their sense of time distorted as the object passed overhead. The global network of radar systems, from desert plains to mountain peaks, has been tied to these mysterious tracking efforts, a silent, coordinated watch for an object no one will officially name. And the astronauts themselves, behind their fogged visors in the silence of orbit, have privately confessed to encounters that were never reported to the public. The object above has been tracked by multiple nations for decades, a silent consensus of observation that remains one of history's greatest secrets. For some, it has become a life's work, a lifetime spent chasing the riddle of the Black Knight, a search through faded notebooks for a truth hidden between the lines. The satellite's orbit seems tied to these polar anomalies, a connection ignored by mainstream science, but whispered about in the frozen wilderness. Young researchers, huddled over vintage monitors, still believe the code may map something beyond Earth, a key to a world unknown. While governments maintained their official silence, insiders, haunted by what they knew, left clues hidden in personal journals, their worn leather notebooks filled with faded ink sketches of triangular objects and impossible orbits. The truth is that global defense systems, with their massive radar installations rising against storm clouds, were not just watching rival nations. They were watching a shadow in space that no one could explain. The few scientists who were given access to the raw signals were left in a state of shock and awe, as the decoded binary sequences pointed not to a simple orbit, but to constellations not visible from Earth's surface. Countless witnesses, lone figures on snowy ridges under shimmering auroras, swore they saw the same impossible object, a faint, moving light that defied explanation. The rarest pieces of evidence, the photographs that captured the grainy silhouette of the dark object, were captured but quickly suppressed, developed in secret darkrooms only to be locked away. Every launch into the heavens, from the earliest rockets to the space shuttle, was an act of public grandeur that concealed a private unease, shadowed by the silent question of whether an ancient eye in orbit was observing humanity's ascent. Ultimately, the most crucial evidence was buried. In dim intelligence offices, female officers sealed thick folders marked Black Knight, their stern expressions a final testament to the decision to keep the truth from the world, locking it deep within classified vaults. And so, the silent watcher continues to circle unseen, its faint glowing orbital path a persistent mystery against the fading crimson horizon, a secret that remains above us even now. We are left with the solemn, unanswered question, is it debris, or something placed here long before us? The arrival of the unknown, still watching. But the search never stopped. In the night desert, small groups of astronomers continued to set up their vintage telescopes, driven by the rumor of a dark object drifting above the Earth. In the crimson glow of observatory darkrooms, scientists studied photographic plates, their hands trembling as the faint, glowing outline of an unknown satellite emerged on the glass. The mystery was a ghost in the machine of the Cold War. In dimly lit military archives, intelligence officers reviewed reconnaissance photos, their holographic overlays marking unidentified objects that were never publicly acknowledged. In cluttered listening stations, the intercepted signals were played back on old tape recorders, their rhythmic pulses sounding like artificial beacons from an unknown shore. The story was chased by a generation of journalists, their smoky newsrooms filled with the clatter of typewriters as they tried to expose the truth of the Black Knight, only to be met with official denial and ridicule. In isolated valleys, massive parabolic dishes, built to listen to the cosmos, captured anomalies that were dismissed as mere interference. But the anomalies were not just electronic. In snow-blasted polar camps, explorers reported their instruments failing, their compasses spinning wildly, as if in raw fear, whenever the object passed overhead. Even the crews of the space shuttle, drifting silently against Earth's curve, saw things not listed in their official mission logs, a faint, glowing silhouette of a dark object just beyond the frame of their recorded reality. Investigators, working in secret, pinned archival photographs to bulletin boards, their scribbled notes connecting sightings across continents, a conspiracy of truth against a conspiracy of silence. In quiet university labs, cryptographers worked obsessively, their chalkboards filled with complex patterns, convinced the signals could map stellar coordinates far beyond our solar system. The object's presence was most strongly felt in the Arctic, where the night sky, filled with violently shimmering auroras, would often reveal the faint, glowing blink of a slow-moving object crossing above the poles. Astronauts, safe in the vacuum of space, still felt a vulnerability, a dread that came with the feeling of not being alone. The official story was one of progress, but historians, flipping through declassified documents, found a different narrative, one of deliberate efforts to hide evidence, of redacted lines that concealed orbital diagrams. The tension was not just in the sky, it was on the seas. In naval command rooms, officers tracked unidentified blips that moved with impossible speed and precision, tying strange radar contacts to the Black Knight's silent orbit. In remote, frozen outposts, the satellite's eerie persistence was felt as its passage disrupted instruments, leaving behind cracked and sparking antennas as a sign of its power. In the early days of computing, female researchers fed the coded transmissions into machines that never produced answers, the determination and obsession of a generation fed into a silent, unyielding mystery. From mountaintop observatories, astronomers strained to track the object, its path moving outside all standard orbits, a ghost in the heavens that refused to follow the rules of physics. The watchers on Earth were, in turn, being watched themselves. The space race itself may have been a reaction, an urgent push into the sky spurred on by the knowledge that a silent presence was already there, a truth hinted at by the faint, alien glyphs that some claimed flickered on the fuselages of Soviet-era rockets. The orbit of the Black Knight, as lecturers would later declare in shadowed halls, is neither random nor human. Explorers in the vast, snowy tundra swore they saw it, a silent guardian drifting above the poles. The most compelling proof remains in forgotten files, black and white photos with orbital paths drawn over them, evidence of a revelation that was deliberately suppressed. For cryptographers, it was an intellectual obsession, a code that seemed to map a star system unknown to man. This silent orbit was a constant source of hidden fear for the world's defense networks, a presence that triggered alerts from missile tracking stations that were quickly silenced. And the signals themselves, played back on strained, erratic tape decks, beat like a coded pulse that was never, ever decoded. While governments and militaries chased a shadow, a different kind of pursuit was underway in the quiet labs and silent archives of the world. The question was no longer if the Black Knight existed, but what it was trying to say. The search for its orbit became a search for its voice. In massive, bunker-like computer labs, scientists from the Cold War era hunched over glowing punch-card machines, feeding the satellite signals into their primitive systems, convinced the code held the key to a cosmic riddle. On cluttered chalkboards, The scribbled notes of researchers transformed from jagged lines of math into elegant, repeating patterns that resembled star maps, a hint that the pulses encoded stellar coordinates beyond our reach. Some of the most brilliant minds began to wonder if the signals were not math at all, but language. In quiet offices, surrounded by ancient manuscripts, linguists typed coded sequences, stunned to see faint, alien-like glyphs appear on their computer screens, a syntax with no human origin. This idea was reinforced in the world's great observatories, where the coded transmissions were found to align perfectly with the positions of distant, unknown stars. The signal itself was a ghost in the static. In cramped listening stations, operators heard rhythmic patterns pulsing like a heartbeat, an intelligent cadence encoded into the noise of the cosmos. Cryptographers, leaning over glowing desks, connected these pulses to constellations, forming geometric grids that suggested the black night was not just an object, but a celestial chart. The signals contained unfamiliar symbols that resembled no human language, a code that seemed almost alive, with some researchers claiming it contained self-correcting algorithms that shifted as they were being analyzed. The great listening posts of the world, from desert plains to mountain peaks, were all tuned to this single, silent broadcast, a signal no one could officially admit existed. The code was sometimes found not in machines, but in the frantic handwriting of those who believed they had cracked a piece of the puzzle, their notebooks filled with waveforms that resolved into coherent constellations. The obsession to understand this message stretched back through time. Historians, in the torchlight of archaeological sites, found that the star alignments on ancient stone carvings matched the orbital diagrams of the Black Knight, suggesting its memory predates our recorded history. The intercepted transmissions filled endless pages of transcripts, a bureaucratic testament to a secret that could not be solved. And on the frozen, snow-covered plains of the world, military radar arrays, built to watch for enemies, caught echoes of an anomaly they were instructed to ignore. Could a piece of the satellite have already reached us? In sterile laboratories, scientists examined metallic fragments with strange etchings, their gloved hands rotating shards that seemed to hold glowing circuits within, a piece of technology that could be the key to the entire mystery. The Earth itself seemed to be an antenna, its deep space listening stations all pointed at the same silent patch of sky, tuned to a voice older than humanity itself. For the cryptographers who dedicated their lives to the signal, it was a haunted existence. They saw the code form unfamiliar constellations in their sleep, a sleepless obsession chasing meaning in a transmission that seemed to have no end. And in the most secure lecture halls, academics pointed to the signal's alignment with stars far from human reach, a message not meant for our solar system alone. This knowledge was echoed in the ancient world. At archaeological digs, researchers uncovered stone tablets with worn symbols that, when analyzed, aligned perfectly with the Black Knight's orbital trajectories. In hidden government vaults, declassified documents revealed that the signals might preserve alien memory archives, a truth hidden beneath blacked-out lines of text. The code was so complex, so alien, that it drove some to the edge of madness, their labs filled with printouts of binary strings that resolved into unfamiliar star charts. The official record shows a silent orbit, but naval commanders in steel-walled control rooms knew differently, their operators tracking the same unknown object that defied all explanation. And in forgotten storage rooms, the old magnetic tapes that held these signals slowly unraveled, the faint, glowing glyphs that hovered above them a testament to lost recordings that carried whispers of a memory that was not human. The orbit itself is a code, a loop that repeats endlessly above the poles, a ritual performed by a silent, unknown intelligence. The fragments found on Earth, pieced together, seem to form memory chips older than our civilization. While science and myth were split apart in public debate, in the quiet of the labs, the evidence continued to mount. Ancient carved discs, unearthed from forgotten ruins, aligned with constellations in the sky, another piece of the puzzle suggesting that ancient cultures had recorded knowledge of the satellite. The code was never meant for human minds. Its complexity was a lock, and our understanding the key. And the transmissions continue, a memory loop playing across centuries, as remote desert antennas still receive pulses from a source that should not exist. Some who listened closely, their ears pressed to headphones in dim, green-lit rooms, claimed to hear whispers resembling human voices hidden deep within the static. While officials insisted they knew nothing, military briefing halls were filled with glowing projections of the satellite's orbit, a secret held by the world's highest powers. In the howling winds of the Arctic, scientists struggled against the storm, their antennas reaching desperately for a signal from beyond. And in sterile evidence rooms, the artifacts were sealed away, the glowing circuits within the shards a silent testament to a truth hidden from the world. The Black Knight, it seems, encodes not only an orbit, but a memory, an alien archive waiting to be unlocked. The signal was a riddle written in the language of the cosmos, but the Black Knight's story is also a human one, a tale of fleeting encounters and suppressed testimonies. The truth of the Watcher is not just in the data. It is in the haunted memories of the pilots, astronauts, and officers who saw something they were never allowed to report. The story of these encounters begins in the smoky press conference rooms of the 1960s, where nervous astronauts, gripping their notes tightly, spoke cautiously of unexplained companions in orbit. Their official mission logs were clean, but in the scribbled margins, a different story was told. Hasty circles around unexplained times, a record of events deliberately omitted from the transcripts. It wasn't just astronauts. In sealed debriefing chambers, military pilots, their eyes still wide with a mixture of fear and awe, gave classified testimonies of seeing something following them in the sky, a silent shadow that defied all explanation. During the height of the Cold War, in cavernous steel hangars, entire squadrons were scrambled in response to radar blips that moved with impossible speed, a source of paranoia and dread that was never attributed to a rival nation. While official channels remained silent, the truth leaked out in personal records. In quiet studies, witnesses wrote in their diaries of lights moving where stars should not, their trembling script a testament to a truth that contradicted the official silence. The cosmonauts of the Soviet Union were haunted by the same presence, their exhaustion upon returning to Earth a sign of a burden far heavier than space travel alone. At sea, naval crews on lonely radar stations tracked anomalies that never matched known satellites, a persistent ghost on their screens that was logged but never explained. In dim, oppressive debriefing rooms, intelligence officers, their faces half hidden in shadow, enforced a code of silence, ensuring that direct encounters with the Black Knight were buried under layers of classification. But sometimes, the truth was too big to hide. In the buzzing, smoke-filled mission control centers of the 1970s, entire teams of engineers glimpsed something drifting across their data screens, a fleeting silhouette that would vanish as quickly as it appeared. In private, off-the-record recordings, astronauts described the unnerving feeling of being watched, their voices trembling as they spoke of a presence that was felt but rarely seen. Decades later, retired pilots, sitting in the corners of dim cafes, would finally confess to journalists what they had witnessed, a shadow that should not be there, drifting silently above the clouds. Investigators, poring over declassified radar maps, connected the dots, linking sightings reported from opposite sides of the world into a single, undeniable trajectory. These testimonies created a deep rift in the scientific and military communities, a conflict between skeptics and believers that raged in sterile conference rooms. The astronauts who returned from these missions were never the same, their late-night debriefs revealing a haunted look in their eyes, their testimonies describing companions beyond understanding. The knowledge of the Black Knight, it is insisted, reached the highest levels of power, a secret known by generals and presidents who chose to keep it hidden from the world. While the official world denied, the witnesses continued to accumulate. In remote Arctic expedition tents, field logs described unexplained lights circling overhead, their cold glow reflecting in the eyes of hardened explorers. The strongest evidence of these encounters remains locked away in confidential folders, a truth suppressed behind steel doors and sworn oaths of secrecy. And so the Watcher remains, its presence confirmed by 1,000 fragile human testimonies, a silent counter-narrative to the official story of our lonely journey into space. In quiet, unofficial interviews, astronauts would hint at the truth, their weary eyes telling a story their words could not, a tale of a shadow silently accompanying their missions. Fighter pilots, preparing on military airfields at dusk, would see things that defied radar explanation, unknown objects that were logged and then promptly buried. Personal audio tapes, kept hidden for decades, reveal the raw, unfiltered descriptions of company in orbit, the trembling voices of pioneers confronted by the unknown. The encounters were not limited to the sky. In the frozen seas of the Arctic, submarines surfaced to find their instruments tracking silent objects trailing them from above, a presence that was both in the sky and reflected in the icy waters. The astronauts who returned would admit, in private, to a feeling of being observed, a sensation that went beyond their technical instruments, a primal feeling of being watched by an ancient, silent intelligence. Retired military officers, haunted by secrets they could never confess publicly, would sit alone in their studies, gripping declassified photographs of a satellite that should not exist. In dim government facilities, heated debates raged around conference tables, officials arguing over how much the public should know, a bureaucratic struggle that ultimately ended in a decision to maintain the silence. The space capsules themselves, upon their return, often carried more questions than answers, their crews changed by an experience they were forbidden to share. The truth is in the margins of mission logs, encircled words that read, "Object followed," a testimony hidden in plain sight. It was a story the press chased relentlessly for a time, only to be met with official denial and ridicule, a truth buried by higher powers. Witnesses described it as a guardian chained above the poles, a silent, looping presence that seemed to watch over the world with a cold, indifferent gaze. The most crucial testimonies were sealed in envelopes marked, "Eyes Only." Their truths never meant to leave the secure rooms where they were first spoken. The encounters multiply, yet silence remains the loudest answer. The encounters were fleeting, the testimonies suppressed, but the legacy of the Watcher was not just written in the margins of mission logs or whispered in secret debriefings. It was encoded into the very fabric of human history, a memory that predates our modern world. The final chapter of this story begins not with astronauts, but with the myths of our most ancient ancestors. In dim libraries, historians now study ancient manuscripts, their trembling hands turning pages covered in celestial drawings that seem to map the satellite's impossible orbit. Scientists in modern lecture halls now present holographic models that show the Black Knight's orbit is not random, but a repeating, stable cycle designed to endure for millennia. The world's great observatories, from their lonely mountaintops, continue to track the same path across the stars that has been traced since antiquity. At desert excavation sites, archaeologists brush the dust from stone tablets, their carved spirals and grids aligning perfectly with the orbital maps of the Watcher above, a message written not on Earth, but in the sky. The truth, some now claim, is that the Black Knight may preserve the knowledge of entire civilizations that were erased by time, an archive of forgotten worlds. The great pyramids of the desert, their shadows stretching across the sand, seem to echo instructions left by this silent presence. In the cold glow of control labs, the binary code of the satellite signal is now being re-examined, with some wondering if the orbit itself is a vast, encrypted database. The Watcher remains, indifferent and silent. Astronauts, gazing from their spacecraft windows, still see its faint silhouette drifting in the distance, a testament to humanity's smallness in the face of a greater mystery. The ruins of Earth, the jungle temples, the stone circles, now feel like mirrors of the memory that is preserved in that lonely orbit. The legacy is not forgotten, only hidden, tucked away in classified files that show a dark silhouette against the stars, evidence that trickles out in fragments. In our futuristic cities, with their towers of neon light, we have built a world of technological marvels. But even now, the faint arc of the Black Knight drifts above, a silent question hanging over all of our progress. Are we building toward the day when its memory will finally be unlocked? The obsession to decode the Watcher's message continues. In high-tech laboratories, scientists write frantic equations across glass panels, convinced that unlocking the Black Knight's code could redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. Its legacy is a cinematic weight upon our history, a presence that forces us to ask if it is a warning or an invitation. To those who have seen it with their own eyes, huddled in the Arctic wilderness, its presence is undeniable, a silent, gliding shadow against the aurora that inspires both wonder and fear. The message is still broadcasting, a faint pulse in the static that can be heard by those who know how to listen, a coded heartbeat waiting for a reply. In the silent deserts of the world, great satellite dish farms are still pointed at the sky, a collective, unconscious effort to hear a voice that is older than our own species. Perhaps the next generation, staring at holographic star maps in their futuristic classrooms, will be the ones to finally unlock the truth. The story of the Black Knight is a burden and a legacy, a mystery passed down through every age, from ancient scribes to aged archivists writing their final notes in quiet, dusty studies. Its legacy endures, circling endlessly above the earth, its faint glyphs pulsing like a heartbeat, a final testament to a truth that is beyond our understanding, yet forever a part of our world. The Watcher's legacy binds generations of seekers, their hands tracing the same faded star maps, their eyes looking for the same alignment in the sky. Our monuments are a dialogue written in stone and sky, their etched carvings pointing to an orbit that was recorded long before we had the tools to see it. Humanity inches closer to decoding its true meaning, our equations transforming into stellar constellations, as if the code itself wants to be understood. But its legacy is not passive. It still interacts with us, its passage causing compasses to tremble, a sign that the memory is not dead, but alive. Our greatest achievements unfold beneath its gaze, a silent presence that has been with us from the very beginning. We preserve the fragments of our own history in museums, while the greater archive circles silently above. Every launch into the heavens is an act of ambition that unfolds under its observation. And in the innocent, curious eyes of a child, the question is asked anew. Who are the watchers in the sky? The Black Knight has become humanity's shared enigma, a mystery that unites all nations under a single, unanswered question. Its legacy is eternity itself, a silent, rhythmic pulse that circles our world, indifferent, yet forever present.